Great. That's fine. That's okay. Okay, welcome to panel session 1. I'm pretty excited about this because here we'll be looking at governance from the eyes of the theme. Now, the theme for this year, what makes it stand out for me on the shift, power platform, and the politics of being young in Africa. That's actually my favorite part. And as God would have it, that was a session I was chosen to handle. When we talk about governance, especially for young people, no matter how calm the conversation is, once governance becomes a topic, it becomes a bit heated sometimes. Why? Because every single young person knows and feels, or really sometimes, what governance should be like. And everyone's opinion must be taken into consideration. Now, there are a lot of challenges, even with conversations like this. A lot of young people face digital repression, there are economic challenges, and generally not having the platform or not having the opportunity to even occupy a seat in the so-called governance for their voices to be heard. The African youth population has about 60%, yet it feels as if all we do is social media conversation. But this session will do something. This panel session will discuss how to redefine the politics of being young in Africa. And I'm super excited to be seated with this young, amazing panelists from around the globe. A round of applause for them, please. All right, just to remind you again, please write down your questions as they come. We'll take them right after the session. Right now, let's go straight into the conversation. A lot of people will say, what does own the shift even mean? They will think about it, okay, it's young people, but what exactly does own the shift mean? Extrain it from the context of governance and politics in Africa today. I'll start with my good friend Hassan. He knows I was going to start with him anyway. Hassan, good morning. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. When we are talking about own the shift, especially in the context of Nigerian and the African continent, I think it means a lot of things. When you look at the historical trajectory of countries around the continent, you would see that majority of countries got their independence in the 60s. And when you look at the people who led independence struggle across the continent, they were young people. I mean, we can use the Nigerian context. The person that moved the motion for independence was 27 years old when he did that. Yakubu Gowon was 31 when he became the military head of state of Nigeria. And then, as you go down history lane, you begin to see that we are now being dominated by the older generation. No disrespect to them, but you also see that the world is also changing in terms of the way we relate to the world. For example, if you look at the world today, the world is dominated by AI. There was also the internet boom in the early 2000s and everything like that. And you look at this generation that are leading us and the context of the problems that we are facing in today's world, there is a big disparity between the generation and the problems that we are facing. They only know how to solve old problems, which is entirely not their fault. And how then do we then insert ourselves into, some of this problem and provide solutions to it? I usually tell people that if you fall into if you're unfortunate to fall into a coma between December 2023 and you wake up today, the skills that you think you have, they have become obsolete if you've not added anything to it. I mean, just look at AI only, many of us, we use it today and everything like that. And, you look at the future of transportation, infrastructure, and everything like that. Now, looking at Nigeria's problem today, young people need to then begin to put themselves into positions where you can provide some sort of solutions to the Nigerian problem, to the African problem, and and I think that's what owning the shift is all about. Looking at the context of the problem and then saying, how do we solve it as a young person? Because again, if you look, just like Itoma said, if you look at the number of people who are young people in Nigeria, no matter the statistics you are looking at, whether it's Mo Ibrahim, World Bank, it's between 60 to 70% of young people who are going to be in the job market, paying the taxes for people, paying the taxes that government will use to run the economy and everything like that. Now, if they are not at the table making the decision, then there is a problem. And power is never given a la carte. Nobody will invite you to the table. You need to find your way to the table to make sure that your voices are heard, so that we don't find ourselves in this generational cycle where your grandfather has complained about the same problem, your father has complained about the same problem, and now you are now complaining about the same. So that's what I think owning the shift is all about. Thank you.
If we leave Hassan here, we'll take over the entire thing. Anyway, I just got the information that Mr. Wilson Maje is supposed to be part of this panel session. Please come forward. A round of applause for him as he gets settled in. All right, I saw that Judith was nodding, and I know she has something very important to say, so let's hear from you, Judith. Still talking about owning the shift, the meaning, and what it actually means to African youth.
Okay, I would say that owning the shifts, let's look at it from the real definition of what owning the shift sounds like. It simply means that you are no longer being told what to do. It means that you're taking the table, like Hassan has mentioned. It means that you're reshaping the agenda. It means you're taking power in how decisions are being made. And I like how Hassan gave the history of how when changes happened, it happened by young people. And if you look across the world, like you mentioned as well, we have about 60, Africa itself has about 60 to 70%. Let's even look at Nigeria itself, that are young people. But then, if you look at the people who are making the decisions currently, they are within the age of 60, 70, and above. So that's about 30 years democracy gap. And it's actually time that we actually need to change that will. I'm happy about so many things that have been happening from 2020, even from the digital, from Nigeria itself, down to Kenya, how Kenyans, young people were able to decode the finance bill, down to Senegal when they insisted that there should be an election. Even if we decide to go global to Bangladesh, where young people in universities started the whole protest about owning the shift itself. So right now, it's more about, it's beyond just where we are currently, the visibility we are, but it's transforming visibility into verifiability, if I can use that word. So to me, that's what owning the shift really, really means.
All right, thank you, Judith. Now, the last time I interviewed Mr. Shemie on air, it was something else, and I was super excited to find out I was going to speak to him again today. All right, moving to you, Mr. Shemie, a quick one. I know that you're very, very strong about education, and a lot of young people interacting with them will tell you that during the Jack Booth era, using Nigeria as a case study, they will tell you that we had a lot of young people at the helm of affairs. But again, young people are asking, what has changed moving into democracy? We're supposed to see more young people take charge, but then they keep referring us to, oh, during this time it was like this. But young people are asking, why isn't it the same for us? What do you have to say about that, especially in context of governance and owning the shift in Africa?
Thank you so much. First, when you were introducing us, you said there are a bunch of fantastic young people that are seated here. I have decided to continue dressing like Gen Z because I don't want to grow old quickly. Unfortunately, age is not, it's not permitting that. But yeah, I think today globally, the problem is around the gap between knowledge and practice. To be honest, an average young person is highly empowered with knowledge, but the huge gap is practice. And when we make reference to the past, just like my brother, they were young and they were young, they were not giving. They were young and they took it. So when we keep making reference to how those people were young, I think the problem is today, we still have young people who are seizing spaces. The unfortunate thing is where they are seizing spaces only seems to profit economically. It doesn't profit in terms of governance. Okay? When Tony Elumelu, the likes of them started banking, they started very young. And the system then provided them leverage to start a bank and own a bank. Today, a young person seated here cannot do that. Okay? But we also now have today young people who are starting digital banking that these old guys cannot do. We have Flutterwaves, for example, that pulls much resources, even more than the traditional, banks that we know. So we now have the Nollywood, for example. I was somewhere in the U.S. recently, and in a carnival, all white, they were playing Nigerian, music back to back. I'm like, did you hear what they are saying? Okay, so young people are seizing spaces in certain places that other, traditional adults cannot do. The problem is we haven't tuned into how to seize the space in a place where it can affect every one of us, which is governance. And this is unfortunately unfortunate. Maybe as we speak on, we'll be able to now examine the power of digital organizing for the current Gen Zs. We learned a very bitter lesson in the last general election, okay, where we saw the power of digital media, to influence political activities. Unfortunately, the Gen Z seems to, they don't know how much power they have. The Gen Zs are powerful. These guys are so powerful, they don't respect anybody. They are so powerful, they know they fear. You understand? As a person, when we meet an elder in a bus, we stand up. Do you know what this guy do? Even if you ask them to stand up, they will insult you to your face. And that is what this current world needs. The fierceness, the courage, the unbiasedness. But the problem also is they are not patient. They are not coordinated. They are so emotional. They are triggered with the simplest things and they are unsustainable. And this is what the political class has. You can insult a political, the adult in the political terrain today. You can insult him for 30 days and he will calm down. He knows where he's going to displace you. I think as we move on, these are some of the gaps that are existing. Knowledge and practice. How do we translate our knowledge to a sustainable practice that can influence the governance, which affects every one of us?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shemi. I appreciate you. Moving to Ring Solar, a very, very important question I would like to, ask is, for a young person who wants to participate in politics, wants to get into office or run for office, regardless of whether at the national, the state, or the local level, first of all, must there be someone to back them up? Secondly, regardless of just running for office, are there other ways they can make their influence and their mark felt?
I will start with the second question, and the answer is absolutely yes. I have tried to serve through many different pathways. I've tried running for office. I've tried running for office within my party. I've worked towards appointed positions, which I currently occupy at the moment. And I would say that there are very many different pathways to power, and running for office is not the only way that we can do it. What I have, however, noticed, because I do a lot of volunteering as well and peer mentoring for young people who are interested in politics, is that if you speak to 9 out of 10 young people who say they're interested in public service, they want to run for office. And usually they want to run right away, even before they've built a network, before they're ready, before they even, in some cases, understand their constituency or where they're from, they want to run for office. So it's a good thing to have that as a goal, but it's not something that you will always be able to do immediately you decide to join politics. There are a number of factors that could make it easy, depending on the platform you're running on, the network you've built up until that moment, how much you have at your disposal, not necessarily your funds, but if you have support as well in terms of funding for your campaign. So there are a number of factors that could actually make it easy for a young person to transition, say, immediately from the private sector to running for office and then winning an election. That happens, but more often than not, that is not the case. So there is also a need to build competence. Like in any other field, if you go into banking today, you cannot just decide you want to be manager of your bank or ED of the bank. You need to have built competence and to have built some experience. And that applies to politics and public service as well. Do you need backing to run for office? So backing means a lot of things, but I would say that even by INEC requirements, if you want to fill an expression of interest form or a nomination form, you need people who will sign your form. Depending on what you're running for, there's a set number of people that will sign the form before you're able to actually be considered as an aspirant by your party. So at every step of the way, you need support, whether it's in terms of funding, except you're incredibly wealthy, and that's, again, often not the case with young people. You need support in terms of even going through your primaries. After you've won your primaries, you need support for your elections. Whether it's about your stakeholder engagement, you need support and backing from local stakeholders in your constituency that will tell you who to consult, who to speak to, what to say when you get to certain places. So politics is a very social thing. I'm a very introverted person, but I've learned how to relate with other people, how to, strike and sustain relationships by virtue of being involved in politics. So at every step of the way, if you're involved in something as heavily social as politics is, you need backing, you need support, and that cuts across whether it's technical support, whether it's volunteers for whatever you're doing, whether it's leaders, whether it's mentors, whether it's other young people like you who will volunteer for you or who will support you, whether it's other young people who you will come together to form lobby groups within your political party with. You need backing and you need support at every step of the way as a young politician.
Thank you very much. Very clear. Moving to Mr. Wilson. A quick question here would be for young people looking at the political sphere, looking at governance in general, would you say that young people are currently redefining or creating new structures? That's redefining the old or creating new structures?
Thank you very much, and it's indeed a privilege and honor to be among lots of the young people that I do not just see as a number when we talk about our evolution, politically or democratically, but you are the very, very foundation of what, this political shift or democratic shift that we're talking about is today. I want to also piggyback my feedback on what some of the colleagues, have mentioned. So I currently serve as the Chief Technical Advisor to the Governor of Plateau State. I know that the moderator didn't have that note because of the timing of my coming, and you can see I'm quite young. And I would tell you that I have had a role of influencing a lot of the policies and programs of the current, government of Plateau State, reaching out to various ministries, departments, and agencies, and discussing across, thematic issues, not just one particular, ministry or agency. I'm laying that so that I could also inspire you with the feedback I'm going to give on, the particular question that is being asked. For a long time, I think a lot of us have, like I often say, there is a very thin line between activism and antagonism. And if you're not careful, you may move from being an activist to an antagonist without really, really providing a solution to the problems that we have. This shift that we're talking about today is not just a mere, conversation around how do we, get to ensure that there is a change of power from an older generation to a younger generation, as has been mentioned by the previous speakers. Because traditionally, power is being seen as control, right? The older ones see it as control and access, to resources, as it is, access to institutions. How do we control institutions? But for the younger generation, what do we see power as? We see it as influence. We see a lot of young people today, as Semir has mentioned earlier. You talked about the traditional banking, and you gave example of Money Point, Flutterwave, and all the rest that have moved without the same structures that the older generations have had, and are making quite a significant impact in the digital, banking industry today. So when we talk about this shift, we're not just talking about, an age, shift, but we're talking about how to be able to move young people from just being, subjects of decisions of development, where political leaders, are making certain decisions on your behalf and it impacts on you, to a point where you become strategic partners in this process of whether co-creating such solutions or, designing innovative ways. Because I know that a lot of young people are talking about not just being brought to the table. We want to be part of the process that will help us to be able to design what the table should look like, isn't it? We don't just want an inclusion in terms of policies, government makes declaration, but we want to be able to design what we think are the policies that will work with our own time and age. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Back to you, Hassan, quickly. Social media movements, have become very powerful. We see young people taking on, moving to social media to have conversations. There's a lot of dragging, there's a lot of call-outs, there's a lot of cancels here and there. But looking at it in relationship to what we're talking about, how do we translate online activism? He mentioned being an antagonist, right? How do we ensure that we are constantly clamoring for change in the sense of direct activism in sustained political change and institutional reform?
I think the simple answer is collaboration. Many of us grew up on the internet, so we live on the internet, and that is where we know how to challenge, that's where we know how to channel our anger towards. However, internet or the social media outrage cannot translate into physical results if we do not learn how to collaborate. And it goes on to just explain how. Okay, so for example, if you look at the EndSARS 2020, one of the key parts that, and this is my own personal opinion, that we missed out was we had gotten to a stage where government was saying, "Come to the table, let's discuss this," and we're like, "No, no, no." At that point, we needed collaboration. We could have gone in, selected who was going to, be part of that conversation, and then we would have been able to get, even if it was just one thing, and that would have moved us from where we were and where we are going to. And the other thing, just like you said, that we need patience too. Society cannot drastically change. And again, if we are looking for a society that will drastically change, it means many of us might lose our lives to it, because again, revolution is not something, and I see it a lot on social media, and then I'm like, have you seen a revolution before? It's blood. It's not just, it's not changing of things and everything. We also need patience for society to move from where, and so any win that we get from every of our activism, every of our work and everything like that. And then there's also the third part around education, just, understanding that this is where somebody's power stops, and this is where the another person. So again, even knowing who to even bring your issues before. You are dragging somebody on the internet, and they are telling you that I'm not in charge of this particular issue. So what can I do? Do you understand? But knowing the right person, for example, many a times, people drag, House of Reps for roads that are not being built. I'm like, that is not the role of, lawmakers. That is the role of the executive. If this is what you're supposed to drag your local government chairman for, your governor, and, so when we know all those things, we know how to, it's easier to channel when one person is feeling the pressure from, and it's like all of us here, we are clamoring for one thing, and we know who is in charge of it, and we are able to channel that thing towards that person. That person feels the pressure and is able to act on it. But when all of us, we are attacking the wrong person and the right person is sitting over there, he can just walk away and, let the thing fester on and
Slide.
everything. So by the time we are able to take in some of those things, first of all, collaboration, knowing that, okay, things will not just change overnight, but we take the little wins that we have from this particular advocacy, then move on to the next one. Number 2 is, understanding the system, creating some sort of awareness amongst young people, and then be able to do that over time. And then we'll be able to see that, and again, I'll just go back to that NSAS. Let's say we had agreed on one thing. Government says it takes them 2 years. After 2 years, we come back again. We are able to, and between 2020 and now, the change would not be blown in 1 minute. But if you are looking at it in an historical manner, it gives you a lot of view. As, a lot of things has changed. And then that's where we begin to see, these things. And we also need to know that social media is a tool. It is not the end. It is a means to an end. The moment we begin to understand that this thing is a tool for me to get what I need, then we are not treating it as what I need. And I think that's one of the problems that we have. So we look at social media as a tool that, is giving us a means to an end. It gives us, some level of democratization of opinions. We hear from a lot of people, and we are able to reach out to people who ordinarily are not accessible to us. And then we begin to make use of it, and then we begin to see the progress that we want to see in society. Thank you very much.
All right. Judith, moving to you. Still looking at social media, when you see some tweets from activists, especially those that are very young on social media, are there some things you've noted that you think they could do better or, change? Or are there better ways to approach certain issues rather than just going at a person, at a political leader, or at a particular institution of government, insisting or clamoring for change in the wrong way? Are there things you've noticed?
Yes, I would say yes to that. One thing we always need to understand is that in terms of governance, politics, and all, these people are very strategic. Not just strategic alone, but they are structured as well. So you also need to be strategic and structured. It baffles me sometimes when a serious tweet is ongoing. For instance, they say that they're about to build a special hospital for at the National Assembly or something. That's, for instance, it did happen at some point. There was a conversation around that. And young people are tweeting and talking about, somebody is saying, why would they do that? What happened to our hospitals? Or let's even look at the minister that was flown out recently out of a heart attack, and people are having serious conversations about that, and then you will just hear someone come and throw banter. And then the whole thing, bam, distracted. Sometimes I would look at it, is this actually also a strategy from the government themselves to distract people's attention from the real conversation? Or when that happens, you begin to hear a new news that will just come out about, maybe they'll just bring one comment and they say, man slap woman. And then everybody will just leave the real conversation and move along to that side. So most times I'm like, this is a strategy. How are our young people, how are we also strategizing to ensure that in that woman slap man or man slap woman, we'll say, so minister is still not back to the country. Why is he not using our primary health care? Why is he not using national hospital? Why is he not, those are conversations, and it sometimes it hurts me. If you look at good success that I've brought about, for instance, even the finance bill, was because I was having a conversation with someone. I was like, it's because they understood, they were able to decode the finance bill. Most of the bills that are going on currently, do we have young people that have even read them at first sight? I attend a lot of public hearings. Yes, we do a lot of advocacy online. It's so unfortunate. In one public hearing, I heard a Senate say to us in this room that let them be on social media making noise. This is where the real thing happens. That's because they understand the politics. They understand the structure of a bill becoming an act. Do we as young people understand that structure? When we mobilize online, can we also try to see it for the meantime, since we have that age divide, since we have that gap, can we also try to meet halfway? We have mobilized online. We have advocated online. We have tagged thousands of people online. And now, currently in Nigeria, the Constitution says for a bill to become an act, it has to go through certain stages. are we putting ourselves into that stage, in that social media post we're putting out there? How can we say, hey, tomorrow is the public hearing for this? There was the one for tax reform. It was difficult to see young people. There was the one for electoral act. Electoral reform, sorry. It was difficult to see in the room real young people. So the conversation is, how do we translate that power we have online, getting civic education, understanding the subject matter, not being divided by trends or banter, and also moving our online presence for now till the Constitution begins to amend to have a hybrid session. Then we can now start, moving ourselves in. How can we be in the room as well? One way or the other, speak to people. Sometimes people are not even aware of these public hearings because they're kind of hidden. But when you get the information, how do you spread it across your team, across your friends? Let people know. It's happening, They were doing zonal for the Constitution review. That one even baffled me the more. I went there and young people were talking about how we should make traditional wear a Friday wear in Nigeria. And I'm like, how can a young person come all the way to come to this public hearing and this is your recommendation? That our problem is wearing traditional wear on Friday. That since we are wearing suits in different countries, we should come to that. So it's baffling, Like the understanding is not really there. We need to understand more. You have the platform. If you are one of those that read a lot. I've told my team that we are no longer doing only research and all, but let's break it down to conversations that young people can also understand. Let's make videos. Let's do texts, that are catchy. How can you also, in your own way, in that little talent you have, break out all these policies? Bring out something and put on your social media handle, and people will get to see it. So I know I went round and round, but I hope it was understanding.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judith. Moving to Mr. Michael Shemiye. You spoke about impatience. You spoke about some things that you see from young people these days that are good, but you spoke about impatience. And it looks as if the old order is taking advantage of this impatience to continue to stamp their foot in governance. What else, or just looking at it, how can young people do things differently so they can ensure that this order becomes the new order?
Thanks so much. So I'm just going to tell a story, and probably some of the things that I need to talk to will be connected in this story. And first, I will recommend, I don't know if Rotimi is still here. Okay, Ogami. I will recommend that some of us that are now leaders in, the civic space, we should also volunteer our story more, so that the young people coming will know that it takes a lot of pain and sacrifice to lead change. I went to visit Rotimi sometimes, and I was just asking him, you're just looking fresh. Things are rosy. You are waiting now. So Rotimi told me some very difficult stories that day of how he got here. Before man and God, I was going home that day and I was crying. If I had taken a wrong image of Rotimi all this while, because all I have seen was a Rotimi that wear this nice cap. I always love his socks when he sits on any panel. He is intentional about it. Okay, so I have always seen this guy, and I heard the story that day before man and God. I was going home and I was crying. How tough it was. So I made it a point of duty to also ask few other guys. So I went to Hamza. Hamza was telling his story and was crying. Before I even start crying, he was crying. That is remembering the painful days of trying to choose to lead. Okay? I went to Samson. You saw Samson here. If you see him now, with his beard and his fresh skin, all you will see is this guy is enjoying. Okay? And he also shared passionate story of how they came here. I don't want to tell my own. You will all be crying. Okay, it just tells you that to lead change, to cause this shift, comes with sacrifice. It comes with pain. It comes with a choice that this is what I want to do. And believe you and me, the Gen Zs we have today, they don't have that sacrifice. They don't have it. When Juliet was talking, she said, how do we move energy from online to... we know easy. The Gen Z we have today, one of the disadvantages is they are difficult to lead. Should you even volunteer yourself to lead, they will see you as someone who wants to take advantage of them. Okay. I was telling some of my team members, I said, if I don't take advantage of you, what else, who else will I take advantage of? Because the advantage you even cry they are taking is not useful now because you are not even using it. They took advantage of us. Through that, we learned. They took advantage. I was volunteering in an organization for 2 years. There was no day they gave me transport money, and they sent me everywhere, every day. It was that process that built my resilience. Okay, you can't do that today. So these are some of the challenges. Let's look at it. I met a young girl. She was 22 in Athens. About 2-3 weeks ago, we are attending the Global Democracy Forum. This girl speaks 6 languages: Spanish, German, Greek, French, English. She's the youngest among the forum members. Because of her language diversity, she was sought after. She finished her degree immediately in one of the Greek institutes in Athens. She was hired simply because of that language. She was not hired to teach. She was hired to become diplomatic student that will facilitate communications between young people and experts within democracy forums across Europe. She's a Nigerian. I asked her, how did you get here? She said her parents punished her like she was going to hell to learn those languages. Now, it is a tool in her hand. How do we give, like for example, I said I wanted citizens to have access to local government budgets in Nigeria. We make it look like it is only federal and state that operate as government. We have local government. The first local government I approached here in Abuja was Buhari local government. They arrested me. They arrested me. Do you know what they arrested me over? They said, look at him. He is asking for budget. They were talking about budget as if I was asking for the head of the chairman. Okay? It took us more than 2 years to fight back and forth to say budget is a public document. They were not even aware. They thought budget is something that is sacred. Now we have something on our hand at the moment, the tax bill. People don't know what is coming to us. If and Elizabeth has said something earlier, which I think, God bless future of youth. I mean, what is the NY? Nigeria Youth. God bless them. Some of the young people who had access to resources from them, they are even individual. They don't even have organization. Some of them came to me and say, they had and they applied. Okay. Now, even if we are going to fight this bill, what are we going to use as an alternative information to fight it? We don't have it. We need alternative information that maybe this type of opportunity can fund. In Spain, for example, in local communities in Spain, if you pay tax, once you show evidence of your tax payment, you go to hospital, it's free. Your children go to school, it's free. I just came back from Europe. I was in Greece. Even Nigerians who are not citizens, they just documented that we are living in this community. They pay you 1,200 euro as a taxpayer per month as living support. Okay. What will citizens get if we pay? We need to provide alternative information that are happening in other parts of the world through a click that young people can begin to provide citizens. This is why you need to ask questions. These are some of the innovations that are at the hand of the Gen Zs. They have the power, they have the energy, they have the whereabouts, but the willingness and the coordination is what we are lacking. Hopefully, we can begin to see new strength of youth leadership that can facilitate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Moving to Rinsola quickly. Speaking about where you're coming from, in fact, it was mentioned, thank God I was here early, when Mr. Itodo said, by now you're supposed to be a minister, looking back where you're coming from and where you are now. But with patience, you're occupying this position with so much energy and with so much pride, and a lot of young people are proud of you. How else can youths view this patience? He spoke about it, subtly. But for you, you've seen it happen in real time. How else can they view this patience and channel it properly to eventually owning the shift?
So I want to start by saying that I don't hold as much of a critical view of the Gen Zs as a lot of older youths in code to do. And it's because, personally, I don't think they're much different from how we were when we were younger. And that's my honest to God opinion. Youth, generally, when you're young, there are things that you do, there's a way you approach things that changes as you grow older. Growing older, it imbues you with experience, it imbues you with patience, and I wouldn't want to say wisdom entirely, but more wisdom, because being young doesn't mean that we're not wise, it just means that we're young, and so there's exuberance, there's a certain level of impatience, we want to get things done right now, yesterday if possible, but getting older helps you with perspective, and it teaches you how to do things differently. In my experience, I've worked with a number of very young people. They've been quite patient.
Okay.
But what I think they don't like is being, like you rightly noted, taken advantage of, being exploited. And that ideally should not be the norm anywhere in the world. I don't believe that young people should volunteer for things or be expected to work and give their all without being duly compensated. If it was done to us, we should not be doing it to them. It's not right. They have their needs, they have their priorities, and I think we should also try as much as possible to look out for them too. So that said, thank you. That said, first off, I want to start by correcting what Samson said. I'm very happy to be where I am today, and my journey has taken the shape that God has wanted it to take. I'm very happy. Before I was DG, I was SSA to the President on Citizenship and Leadership. I'd previously also worked in the National Assembly as SA to the Speaker. So I would say that every single role that I have occupied has actually helped me with the experience and the perspective that is now, been very useful to me at this role that I occupy today. So whatever it is that the future holds for my career in public service is entirely up to God, but I'm very content. And more importantly, I'm also very grateful that I've been granted an opportunity to even serve at all. And I'm not the only young person in a government office at the moment. Across the federal government, you will find many other young people. There's Mr. Charles Odi at Smedan. There are many young aides. At state level as well, you'll find a number of young commissioners, aides, appointees. And we have an increasing number of young elected officials too, particularly at state assemblies and in the National Assembly too. The number keeps growing, and that is, thanks in part to the immense work done by youth civil society organizations like Yaga Africa and others who came together to work during the Not Too Young to Run campaign. So I would want to say that to the Gen Zs, to the younger people, and even those who are about older youths like me who might still fall somewhere within the youth bracket but are also interested in public service, just get involved and be patient. I made a comment earlier while I was engaging the media. There is no field of endeavor where you do not encounter difficulties. If you go into any trade, you start a business, you get a job, climbing the ladder of success takes a lot of sweat, it takes a lot of effort. It's the same thing in politics. I joined politics early, pretty much as soon as I was done with NYSC. The same way people decide I want to go into music, I decided I wanted to go into politics. But we have seen a lot of other young people who make that transition from private sector, owning their businesses, and are doing really well. So the moment you make up your mind, you need to first understand the why. Why are you joining? Identify a platform that you believe in and that you can participate through. Identify like minds that you can work with. I have been part of a lot of advocacy groups, even within my own party. So we also have to also learn to work with other young people. So all I'm saying essentially is, yes, it takes patience, but we've also seen people come in and then become minister pretty much right away. We've seen young people get in, after a few years, become commissioner in their states. The fact that my own story has taken a number of stops along the way doesn't mean that's what it's going to be like for you when you come in. It could be something much higher the moment you decide to join. So just whatever it is that you choose to do, you know, give it your all, know why you're doing it, because when you encounter difficulties, it is the why that will keep you grounded, and it is why you will keep pushing. And again, I'm advocating once again for our Gen Zs. You guys, yes, you could be a handful, but you could come with a lot of passion and you come with a lot of energy. And if you have a loyal one with you, they would go to war for you. They would give it all it takes. You just also have to be very mindful of how you treat them. We need to treat the younger people the way we would have wanted people to treat us when we were their age. And then lastly, a point I would like to make, there's a lot of misinformation, especially when it comes to supposed opposition circles, especially online. They spread a lot of fake news, they spread a lot of misinformation. Not everything we read is true, and not everything that is said is true. They count on the sentiments, the anti-government sentiment of a lot of young people. We're in a democracy. I've had my very strong activist days. I don't police people and what they say and what they believe, but I would like to urge us all. This is the country we have. We're about 200 million people. We need to be very careful of the kind of news that we digest. We need to try as much as possible to verify what we read so that we're sure that we're not reacting to something that is entirely untrue. It's the only country we have. So please let us properly consider what we read and also properly consider actions that are being suggested by people who have an agenda of their own that is entirely different from what we think it is. Thank you.
Speaking about national integrity. All right, moving to Mr. Wilson. If we successfully own the shift and this conference successfully puts that idea into us before we leave here today, and we take it out there, we take out that force, and we're able to accomplish that, what will African governance look like in the next couple of years?
All right. It's been quite a very interesting session, and I hear quite a lot of our feedback. But I also know that the feedback from one of the panelists to another is sort of complementary if you follow through the ideas that our dear friends are sharing here. For the young people, of course, I hear a distinction between the Gen Zs, but we're forgetting the Gen Alphas now, right, in our conversation that are also emerging. And I think it's quite critical that we understand the platforms that we own. So Rinsola was talking about, of course, the social media, how impactful it is, but I also heard the concerns by Judith earlier, how conversations could be derailed. Because I know that it is quite easy, to be momentarily charged. That energy that Semia was talking about earlier, to have young people trend a conversation that gets us hyped up, and the difference in the conversation we are having today as young people is that how do we get to translate that momentary, vibe that we feel into a very sustained momentum of impact and influence towards shifting the narrative, and owning it to our own standards, as young people, as a generation that is transformational, as a generation that today is being impacted with the digital era. A lot of changes that the older generation, are unable to even catch up with, like we've mentioned, repeatedly. What would be the future of governance if we ourselves, as young people, understand that what we have today, the legislators' chamber that we have today as National Assembly or State Assembly, agree or believe it or not, has moved to some of these social media platforms. We talked about some of the bills that were dropped as a result of a lot of the conversations that held on social media. Now, it may seem to you, or you may not even be conscious, that it was the impact of a lot of the conversations that were held online by a lot of young people, a lot of positions that were presented, against such, policies that people felt would be against the will of, the public, the citizens, that drove, those conversations or those hearings, those public hearings, to eventually agree that such policies should not pass. A lot of you would not also realize, but I've also followed even the current government, and I've seen that a lot of the voices of the young people online are being listened to. Now, you may not seem to understand those momentary shifts, but Rinsola, I know that the president had also, some months back or last year, constituted a committee for a national youth confab when the youths were agitating to go to the streets. It was an immediate response to ensure that the youths, I think Samson, Rotimi, are you on that board or something? But Samson and the rest were put together as a team of young people to organize a youth confab. It's still yet to happen anyway. But we're still watching. You can see that a lot of the conversations online are not just mere conversations. So young people have to understand that we have a very, very powerful yet potent tool. But beyond that, we need to be able to have policy allies. Because making those conversations online, generating those momentum, that vibe, that energy, those strengths, without a corresponding partnership with policymakers will not necessarily yield the results, well, at least not as fast as we expect them. So whether it means, we having some of our people also transforming the system from within, not everyone, of course, a few of us have taken that very, very difficult step to see that we are currently trying to help shape public policy with the roles that we've taken, Rinsola, myself, quite a number of young people. If we have a few of those reformers out there, what we will do is that you will realize that there's a gradual shift in the bureaucratic culture of public governance. You would also see that the governance space will become a bit more open, a bit more accessible. I know how many young people have reached out to me in my state with so many initiatives and so many programs, and they've been able to get the sort of support that they need, which didn't exist before now. If it were an older person that does not understand where they're coming from, he looks at the document and he keeps it aside. So we must begin to move, from those momentarily, excitement to have a few of us shape memos, to shape policy briefs, to shape budget documents. Shamia was talking about it. A lot of our budgeting is not done based on data. But we have a lot of innovation hubs today that are championed by young people. We have a lot of data centers. And today, data drives governance globally. Okay. If you are able to provide or create solutions, and this is where, you have to, like I said, moving from platforms. And this is where strategic thinking and strategic partnership plays a very key role. Young people are technically competent. We can have a lot of solutions that are scalable. But the only way they can influence governance is if we begin to wear the strategic thinking cap and connect it, to what the policies of government is today and tomorrow.
All right.
By so doing, we're able to have a governance framework that opens up the space for fellow young people, and not just that, but that delivers on very laudable reforms and initiatives that will impact on the citizens of our country.
All right, thank you very much. A round of applause for all of them, please. Thank you so much. All right, let's take a few questions. I think I will have time for just 3 questions. If you have a question, I would love a mic to quickly go around. That's 1, 3, just 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Just stand up. 1. Yes, you. Yes, and the other person there. There's a third man behind you. Yes, you, stand up. So please give them the mic, let them quickly ask their questions so we wrap up.
Okay, good afternoon. This is Joyce Samuel again. So speaking of shifts, power usually moves from the older generation to the younger. What are the youths to do in a country where many among the older generation, using their incumbency, make it difficult for the youth to rise, either due to their inability or unwillingness to let go?
Okay, let's take the second question.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, my question will be to Madam Risola or something. You may mention that you you have already have a passion to go into politics right from when you graduate from schools. So we all know your background. It was very easy for you to transit from graduate, being into politics and all this. So what kind of advice can you give someone on the street there, like a you like me, that just want to go into politics also? And how can I transit also to be successful along the line in the politics also, just like you made mention of? Thank you.
All right, the third person, please.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much for the wonderful panel discussion. Well, with respect to platforms that people could actually go and learn the best ways to not just become public servants, but also public leaders, what kind of platforms are available, states, local, to the higher level, where people could volunteer their time to learn and also get paid while volunteering, and also when you're done with service, at least make an impact. Because we have lots and lots of initiatives like this, but they are minimal in terms of accessibility. So what could you say about accessibility to these kind of opportunities? Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Shemia, please take this last question.
Thank you so much. I don't know how to put it, but I just want to encourage all of us that, you see, even when you want to do good, it is still difficult. As young people, we just need to make up our mind. Yeah. I wanted to work for free. I wanted to learn. I moved from one offices to another in Abuja. I was even asking, I just want to volunteer for free. Don't even pay me. Nobody gave that opportunity. But I didn't give up. I walked around until somebody gave a space. Somebody said, the older people are not giving way. Please work with them, because they are not going to give way. Okay. I don't know when you are going to get tired of the leadership of your father, and he will now volunteer the fathership to you and say, you can now start being my father. This is what happens everywhere in the world. Okay. Rizola said something earlier, but I just picked on it. You see, when we are having conversation like this, let us be plain and be truthful. Because when we go into the world is not going to treat us as if we are special. We have issues on our hand. This is our country. I wish all of us can be given visa and run away. But unfortunately, there's no way. So we have to be resolute. Okay, I had a problem with the Ministry of Youth. I was not happy the way things are run. I wrote personally to the office of the minister, I will volunteer to work with you for free. I wrote it repeatedly. My letter was kept because 2-3 ministers didn't respond to it. But a minister came in. I don't know how he stumbled on that letter. And they reached out to me. And I volunteered to work with that minister as a technical advisor on governance. Free of charge. And I didn't change what I said I was going to do. And I worked free of charge. I traveled with her abroad. I paid for my ticket. They offered to pay. I said, no, I will pay. I paid for my ticket. All I wanted was, let there be a means with which I will be able to contribute. I'm not saying you should do that, because you might not have the means. But I'm just telling you the process with which you can even be accepted to wanting to make a change. Okay. You wanted to do what is good, but we are too many. More than 200 million people. And similar people with your same intention are also many everywhere. How do we even know who is genuine? So please, let us continue to strive. Let us continue. If you work with me today, even as a volunteer, the simplest resources you will have to use is a MacBook. We buy MacBook for, even if once you are accepted, and we pay stipends. I didn't have that, but I have made sure nobody work with me that will go through what I went through.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Moving to Rinsola, the question was very direct. So you want to throw more light on that.
I appreciate the question, actually, and it's good that it's brought up because sometimes even I forget. So I would tell you straight up that the illusion that it was just easy for me, that's not true at all. And we're pressed for time, but I will very quickly tell you how exactly it was that I got into politics. I finished my service here. I was volunteering with youth voluntary organizations. I was involved in the activities of the National Youth Council of Nigeria. And then I got an email from a virtual friend at the time, Barrister Ismail Ahmed, saying opposition parties are coming together to form a mega party, and we are forming a youth wing, and you seem vibrant, and I would like for you to join. Essentially inviting me to join what would later become the youth wing of the APC, and that's how I got into politics. It wasn't a friend of my father that took me by the hand and said, come and join politics. That was how I got in. And I got in there as I asked for a role to be public relations officer because I was very good at writing at the time, and I believed I could speak and handle media engagement and help to project the youth wing. So it was a skill that I believed I possessed, that I offered, and that I used to negotiate for a position for myself within that movement. And it was from the youth wing of the APC. I represented the youth wing during media engagement, spoke at party engagement, and that was how people began to know me within the party, and that's how opportunities began to come. I would say that, yes, I come from a prominent political background, but my father very famously had a lot of children. You don't see all of us in politics. So again, it boils down to what you want to do. And yes, there are those who are able to leverage on their political backgrounds to get into political spaces, but there are also a lot of people in politics today who do not come from political families. And that's why it's very important that we're very mindful of the kind of narrative that we choose to internalize and what we choose to believe. For every single prominent young politician that is from a political background, I want you to please think about the hundreds, if not thousands, of other young people occupying office who are not from, their father was never a councillor, their father was not wealthy, their mother was never a government appointee. You will go to the grassroots levels, people who are local government chairmen, state assembly members, even members of the House of Representatives. We have people who have won elections in Nigeria riding on the wave of popularity of certain people. It was President Buhari, may God rest his soul. We had the same thing happen with Peter Obi. In the ACN, in the Southwest, we had the ACN revolution. Back in the day, it was ANPP with Buhari at first before CPC. So many people not from any significant political backgrounds were able to ride on these waves and be elected. You will find others who were able to run even outside of established or popular political parties, run for things like House of Reps, Assembly, fund their elections, and then go on to win. So please don't internalize that narrative that says that unless you're from a prominent political background, then as a young person you cannot strive and go into politics and be successful at it. There are many examples. There are many examples. So please don't let maybe a few of us who are prominent, whose fathers or mothers were in politics, we are not the only ones within the space. There are exceptions around us that are doing very well, even in appointive roles. And it's also why it's important that whatever position you're in today, strive to make yourself known. We have people who have leveraged on the media by writing articles, by engaging, by going to events like this, by starting through civil society, youth organizing, by starting with community development efforts, and they have gotten recognized and then been invited into public service from there. So that's just my response to that, and I really hope that it is sufficient and that it addresses the concerns or the misgivings that you have.
Thank you very much. Moving to Hassan. Hassan, someone threw a question. The lady, sorry I didn't get your name. She talked about incumbency, refusing to shift power to the younger generation. How do you respond to that?
From my initial assertion, I said power is never given a la carte. Like nobody would willingly shift away from a position of power. And if you also understand the context of the Nigerian situation, you would know that power is even much more established in a country like Nigeria. However, I also think that we think of governance and governance in a simple way. We think of it as just elections. And just like Risola said, they are also we also think about governance as elected positions. There are a lot of positions that you can hold within the the public space. There are about more than 8,000 positions, including elected and appointed positions in Nigeria. And I know that there are about to be even more with local government elections taking place in the country and everything like that. We need to start looking at government as a continuum and not as a thing that we do every 4 years. That, we come out for elections, once we have voted for this person, then we are done. There are places where you can begin to engage the government, even after elections, and that would prepare you for positions that would then, catapult you into that place where you can then take power. But if you think about it as, we have done 2027, let me go inside my house. When it's 2031, I will come out again. We would still see, it's like doing the same thing the same way over time and then, expecting a different result. First of all, we need to think about governance as something that is ever continuous. The policies of today, the actions of today will come to shape us in the next 10 years. So how do you want to get into that part? And then when you think about it in that regard, that whatever is happening today, if I have not found, putting or at least throwing something in there, it will come back to affect me and my kids in the next 10 years. And then it begins to, you begin to change your orientation about government, about governance, about power, about authority. And then you can, and again, there are a lot of ways to even get involved in governance. I think majority of the time we also think, maybe because of the way power has been structured in the country, we think about it from the federal level. There is, the state level, local government level, community level, that you can also venture into and be able to showcase some of the skills that you have. And if you then begin to look at it in that way, you would then see that there is a particular trajectory that you can take to begin to effect some of those changes that you want to see, the incumbency that you want to push away, you would be able to push them away. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Hassan. Judith and Mr. Wilson, in less than a minute, just take it 30 seconds, just wrap up your thoughts or our thoughts, in less than 30 seconds.
Okay, owning the shifts is not a slogan. It's a strategy. And when you get there, there's a pathway to that, to getting there. When you get there, don't become that thing that you fought. We're looking forward to a government where accountability is the norm, is the good governance, not activism. Accountability shouldn't be coming from activism. So don't become that thing that you were fighting.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wilson?
All right, I would say that for a lot of our young people, we should be deliberate in getting into the policy space. Let us use our knowledge and ensure that we're able to shape public policy in a way that it is reflective of what we want to see in our society today. Let us also leverage on the power of technology that we have today. It is our greatest assets as young people. Let us use that to develop a lot of the tools that we did mention earlier for ensuring public accountability in terms of finance. We have a lot of agencies that are doing that today. We all know them, the Budgets, Accountability Lab, and all of that. And that has given them a very critical role in shaping what Nigeria's governance is today. We are a lot of content creators, number 3. So we should use our platforms as young people to give a different story by reshaping what the narrative of a new Nigeria should look like. What should be a new Africa for us as young people? Let us leverage on those platforms. And finally, let us also remember, that power is not just about, access to certain offices where we would have security and convoys and siren. Power is influence, and it is changing. And as young people, we have to look at it differently. Power is not the seat you occupy, but the difference you can be able to make within your society today. So however you are able to change, the state of the nation today, in whatever small way you are doing that, know that you have a lot of power to transform our society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone on this panel. Remember that you have the power and you have the platform. Use it well, because owning the shift takes time, and we will get there. My name is Itoha Ekpemiata Olani. Thank you so much for joining us today.